How did we get here? Was it evolution? Did unicellular life branch out over time to produce complex organisms such as astronauts? Evolutionists claim to subscribe to Darwinian ideas because of science. But what is science? The National Academy of Sciences describes science as twofold. First, there is a formulation of a conjecture or hypothesis about the natural world. Second, there is a testing of the hypothesis by ascertaining whether deductions derived from the hypothesis are indeed the case in the real world. In essence, science deals with the tangible world of naturally occurring phenomena that can be observed and tested. If evolution is scientific, then it must be a naturally occurring phenomena that can be observed and tested. But what is evolution? Unfortunately, the National Academy of Sciences does not have a concise and scientifically agreed upon definition of evolution. Our federally funded curricula framework, called the Next Generation Science Standards, requires evolution to be taught in public school, but has also failed to produce a definition. Major court cases dealing with evolution have also failed to produce a scientifically agreed upon definition. And most shockingly, Charles Darwin himself did not give a concise definition of evolution in his book, On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. But the title does a good job of telling us what he thought evolution to be. According to Darwin, species originate by means of natural selection. So in essence, evolution is natural selection causing species to emerge. Can Darwin's hypothesis be tested? Does natural selection cause new species to come into existence? If so, what can be learned from the field of genetics? Deoxyribonucleic acid, known as DNA, is the blueprint for all living things. Information is stored in the rung-like pegs that connect the double helix. Each half of the rung is a molecule, and when it is paired with another half rung, they become what is called a base pair. These base pairs are much like the ones and zeros of a computer program, and they determine what kind of an organism can be built. We humans have 3.2 billion base pairs in our genome. How does this information line up with evolutionary thought? Darwin sketched a tree of life very similar to this one. He placed simple organisms at the trunk, and we complex higher-thinking organisms way up at the top. Of course, organisms like flowers and fish are placed in the middle based on their level of complexity. If evolution is true, we can infer our 3.2 billion base pairs as most complex, and we should observe a decrease of base pairs in organisms as we travel toward the trunk of the tree, which makes a lot of sense until the real data surrounding an organism's genome is studied. We humans have 3.2 billion base pairs. This pufferfish has 390 million base pairs. Yet a flower that has no brain and no mobility has 150 billion base pairs. And this single-celled organism has a genome with 670 billion base pairs, making it 200 times bigger than our genome. Nothing about Darwin's tree of life makes sense in the light of real data. When it comes to genetics, evolution cannot be observed, tested, replicated, nor verified. So what about the fossil record? Paleontologists have discovered only two kinds of fossils: extinct organisms like dinosaurs, and extant organisms that are still alive today, like the birds and the bees. Biologists have also discovered two things. Some species are thriving, some species are going extinct. Environmental pressures and habitat fragmentation have caused populations to bottleneck, which is a decrease in numbers leading to an inbreeding depression and low genetic variation. Rates of stillborn and deformed offspring increase, causing extinction. According to Endangered Species International, approximately 500 species went extinct in the 20th century. How does this data line up with evolutionary thought? Evolution proposes that species emerge into existence due to environmental pressures, bottlenecking, and allopatric speciation, otherwise known as habitat fragmentation. Yet these are the very same observable mechanisms that are causing species to go extinct today. Why would they have caused the exact opposite in the unobservable past? The evolutionary claim of new species emerging into existence is contrary to what is scientifically observed. Species are not increasing. Species are going extinct. When it comes to real data that can be collected today, the idea that evolution produces new and unique species cannot be observed, tested, replicated, nor verified. In fact, experts in the field of evolutionary biology agree. Edward O. Wilson described each species as being a masterpiece of evolution that humanity could not possibly duplicate even if we could somehow accomplish the creation of new organisms by genetic engineering. Jerry A. Coyne suggested a better title for the origin of species would have been The Origin of Adaptations. While Darwin did figure out how and why a single species changes over time, largely by natural selection, he never explained how one species splits in two. Evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins boldly stated that he will show the irrefragable power of the inference that evolution is a fact, yet he quickly backpedaled by saying, obviously, the vast majority of evolutionary change is invisible to direct eyewitness observation. These evolutionists are not unique in their understanding of Darwinian thinking. It is quite clear that the idea of evolution is based upon inferences that cannot be observed, tested, replicated, nor verified. No one has ever been able to produce empirical data that scientifically validates the emergence of species by means of natural selection. In fact, the National Science Teachers Association has clearly communicated there is debate about how evolution has taken place and has asked the question of what are the processes and mechanisms. The fact that biological evolution cannot be observed, tested, replicated, nor verified, and the fact that biologists do not scientifically understand how evolution takes place, it puts Darwin's hypothesis in a legal predicament. The 1981 court case Seagraves versus the state of California concluded that scientific explanations must pertain to the how and do not pertain to an ultimate cause. In the 2005 Supreme Court case, Kitzmiller versus the Dover Area School District, professor of evolutionary biology at Michigan State University, Robert T. Pennock stated that, as a science-focused community, we must seek explanations in the world around us based upon what we can observe, test, replicate, and verify. Ultimately, this case showed intelligent design, otherwise known as creationism, to be unfit for the public classroom on the basis of it not being able to be scientifically observed, tested, replicated, nor verified. According to legal precedent, the United States judicial system has outlined a standard of what can and cannot be taught in the public classroom. This standard must be consistent with all topics in science education, including evolution. Due to the fact that biologists cannot explain the how of evolution, and its main result is unable to be observed, tested, replicated, and verified, like intelligent design, otherwise known as creationism, Darwinian evolution cannot fulfill the criteria of what can be legally taught in the public science classroom. Subscribers of evolutionary thought believe that somehow, and given millions of years, new species emerged. Yet if the core aspect of evolution cannot be observed, and is included in the required curriculum, our civil liberties are being infringed upon. If scientists cannot observe it, test it, replicate it, nor verify it, then it is outside of the natural world and therefore supernatural. Richard Dawkins has stated that we need to define religion as belief in something supernatural. Webster defines supernatural as being part of or relating to an order of existence beyond the visible, observable universe. On December 15, 1791, the Establishment Clause was added as part of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which clearly states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. If teaching evolution promotes faith in the supernatural phenomena of the emergence of new species, it cannot be legally taught in U.S. public schools. Adopting an approach of teaching how science works is far greater than teaching how to infer conclusions from a biased view of that which cannot be observed, tested, replicated, and verified. If the youth of today are taught to face problems like hunger, gridlock, energy sustainability, waste, medicine, water scarcity, and terrorism, just to name a few, our nation will be in a position of continued and sustainable breakthrough, bringing wealth and prosperity for generations to come. When attempting to scientifically answer the question, how did we get here? Do not forget that evolution, creation, and theistic evolution all require faith. True science cannot explain life's diversity. We lack empirical gnosis, which is Greek for knowledge. So to claim empirical agnosticism means that scientifically speaking, we do not know how we got here. The next time a conversation revolves around how life became what it is, remember that evolution takes faith, creation takes faith, theistic evolution takes faith, but empirical agnosticism is scientifically honest.